Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there is a ton of news stories to get into today. So let's talk about Impact Wrestling. And of course, as was the case with the last set of Impact Wrestling television tapings, unfortunately, we are going to have to talk about spoilers. I know that maybe I'm part of the problem when it comes to Impact Wrestling at the moment. The ratings aren't great recently, and possibly, I think, in my opinion, a big part of that is the issue of spoilers. Of course, now we're back with having live fans and crowds in attendance at Impact Wrestling shows. The results, whenever Impact Wrestling holds television tapings, they leak out on social media and are widely reported online. So we know what's going to happen ahead of time, and with so much pro wrestling going on every single night of the week, especially when you know exactly what's going to happen on a show, you're not exactly going to tune in unless something big is going to happen that grabs your attention. So unfortunately, we are kind of in the situation right now where maybe, I guess I am, like I said, part of the problem, in the sense that by talking about some of these spoilers here, maybe I'm part of the reason why the Impact Wrestling ratings are going down. I hope not. I hope to shine a light on Impact Wrestling, and if you don't watch it, I hope to tell you about some of these big news stories in which will actually lead you to watch the show. But fingers crossed. Either way, of course, there is a spoiler warning going into all of this. So before each story that we get into on tonight's show, I will do a spoiler warning before each bit to try and give you enough time to not go on if you don't want to. This isn't me being rambling. This is me trying to give you some time just to think, do I really want to watch this? Do I really want to be spoiled? If not, you can always leave now. No problem. You're always welcome here. We talk about WWE, AEW, Impact Wrestling, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So spoiler warning, and let's get into the first big story from the latest set of Impact Wrestling television tapings, and it surrounds the Impact World Champion Christian because the TNA World Heavyweight Championship has been retired. Yes. After Moose brought back the TNA World Heavyweight Championship last year, the Impact Rebellion TV special, carried it for all of the year, then finally lost it to Rich Swann in a unification match earlier this year. It was part of the overall Impact World Championship. Of course, the TNA World Heavyweight Championship for the longest time last year and into this year wasn't even an official championship sanctioned or recognized by Impact Wrestling because, of course, the lineage goes into the current Impact World Championship. Well, finally, earlier this year, just prior to the Impact Sacrifice event, Impact Wrestling Executive Vice President Scott D'Amore officially sanctioned the TNA World Heavyweight Championship as an official World Championship, I guess making Moose actually a former World Champion in Impact Wrestling, but he quickly lost that championship to Rich Swann, who of course then lost the Impact World Championship to Kenny Omega at Impact Rebellion. He became the first man to hold the AEW and Impact World Championships simultaneously. But of course, this past Friday night on the premiere episode of AEW Rampage, Christian Cage won the Impact World Championship from Kenny Omega, defeating him in the first match in Rampage history. Now, at the most recent set of Impact Wrestling television tapings, Christian Cage came out. It was the first time he's been on Impact Wrestling television, not a pay-per-view event, but television for 13 years, I think, since 2008. When the whole, I remember vividly how he got written off of television. He was written off. He was offered the spot of joining Kurt Angle, Kevin Nash, Sting, Booker T, Scott Steiner of the Main Event Mafia, and he said no, got the hell beaten out of him, and was written off of television. Then he subsequently joined WWE. He was meant to be revealed as the mystery attacker of Jeff Hardy at the beginning of 2009. Remember that storyline? That was subsequently later revealed as Matt Hardy. He was meant to be the attacker, and then word leaked out that that was Christian, so they decided to go in a different direction, decided that it would be Matt Hardy. Instead, Christian was moved to ECW, became the ECW World Champion, feuded with the likes of Jack Swagger, etc., and was a prominent member of that brand until ECW disappeared. He actually lost the ECW World Championship in the final match in ECW history against Ezekiel Jackson. A little bit of a veer off there, but that's Christian Cage for you. So Christian Cage came out at the taping, celebrated his victory from Rampage. He was interrupted by the number one contender, of course, for the Impact World Championship, Brian Myers. Those two will meet at Impact Emergence. I'm not going to go into the spoilers of that match, but reports are that it was very, very good. No surprise there, of course. But in this segment, Christian Cage retired the TNA World Heavyweight Championship belt. And to be honest with you, it's probably right at this point. The TNA World Heavyweight Championship was only ever brought back for storyline purposes. It wasn't brought back for anything else. It was brought back to get Moose over. It was something that I don't even know if Impact realistically, when it was first brought back, if they even envisaged it lasting as long as it lasted. The TNA World Heavyweight Championship was to be brought back at the TNA There's No Place Like Home event. This is prior This is prior to the pandemic. This is that long ago. This is like 18 months ago. The plan was that WrestleMania 36 weekend, Impact Wrestling would hold a TNA throwback event. It'd be like old school Raw, old school SmackDown, whatever you want to call it. It'd be like that. And this event would be called TNA There's No Place Like Home. It would feature all of the TNA branding, feature all of the TNA wrestlers, all that kind of stuff. And I think the main event of it was going to be a King of the Mountain ladder match that involved Moose, and Moose was to win the TNA World Heavyweight Championship during that time period. Now, of course, the pandemic prevented that event from happening, but they still persisted with the storyline plans for the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. Instead of Moose winning it at the TNA There's No Place Like Home event, instead, Moose just came out at Impact Rebellion in April of that year and just went, I'm the TNA World Heavyweight Champion, and carried it ever since. And he defended it against Tommy Dreamer, Hernandez, EC3, all of these names. He defended it against all of these names. Eventually, I mean, it got him over. I would say the beginning of Moose's rise in Impact Wrestling, for me, begins when he starts carrying around the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. During that period of time, he starts to get in fantastic shape. His matches start to improve immensely. I think this version of Moose we're seeing right now is the best version of Moose we've ever seen. And I think part of that is the TNA World Heavyweight Championship storyline. The TNA World Heavyweight title was brought back to get Moose over, and it succeeded. It absolutely succeeded. The only disappointment I would suggest is that it got him over, and then he got to the match against Rich Swann, and then he lost, and he's kind of never been the same since. He did have the match against Kenny Omega, which was excellent, but the recent booking of Moose in Impact has just been bizarre for me. I enjoyed the match against Chris Sabin at Slammiversary. Didn't get why he lost. I understand that he won on Impact Wrestling the following week, but the bigger spotlight was the match at Slammiversary. So the booking of Moose post TNA World Heavyweight Championship is very strange for me. Very, very strange. But let's be honest here. It's just, if you're a non-Impact fan and you don't follow Impact Wrestling, which there probably is a lot of people that watch Dynamite or a lot of people that watch AEW that don't follow Impact Wrestling every single week. So when they saw Christian Cage defeat Kenny Omega for the Impact World Championship this past Friday, or when they've seen Kenny Omega carrying both the Impact World Championship and the TNA World Heavyweight Championship, I'm sure a lot of people have been like, why is there the TNA World Heavyweight Championship there? I think maybe they kept it around in the Kenny Omega period just because Kenny Omega's calling himself the bout collector, so I guess the more bouts, the better, right? Maybe that's why they decided to keep it around so much longer. But now it doesn't feel necessary, and it did feel a bit too much, to be honest with you. Like, in that image there, when you can see Christian Cage holding the Impact and the TNA World Heavyweight Championship, it does feel like a lot, doesn't it? And whilst it's kind of the same as like the WWE Undisputed Championship, whilst I enjoyed the sight of Chris Jericho, and you think back when Jericho was Undisputed Champion, you think of the image of him holding the big eagle, and you also think of him holding the big gold, the WCW World Championship and the WWE Championship. You think back to that image, but it always felt clunky. Two bouts always feels clunky, doesn't it? So eventually you do have to get rid of one, and I guess the time of the TNA World Heavyweight Championship is now over, and that's fine. I think it's fine for however long it lasted. It was never going to last forever, and I guess now is the perfect time to get rid of it. Let's face it, if it was Kenny Omega, a heel from another company, and it was Kenny Omega, and Kenny Omega came out and said, this title sucks, and threw it on the ground, people would get so angry, wouldn't they? Oh, he's burying Impact Wrestling, he doesn't care for the company, this goes to show what AEW thinks about Impact Wrestling, etc., etc., etc. For a babyface to do it, and a beloved Impact legend like Christian Cage do it, makes more sense to me. So it's the end of the TNA World Heavyweight Championship, and it was a fun run while it lasted, and I think frankly it lasted a lot longer than people thought it would, and maybe it just spiked sales of the TNA World Heavyweight Championship again. The only thing that I guess is disappointing is I really like the TNA World Heavyweight Championship design. I prefer it to the current Impact World Championship design, to be honest with you. I think that version of the TNA World Heavyweight Championship is the best version. I must say though that the white strap that Moose had when he was a champion, I thought was lovely. I thought really was lovely. The irony is that isn't even the official TNA World Heavyweight title. Nobody knows where the original TNA World Heavyweight Championship is. The championship that Moose had was a replica. It was a replica, something like bought on eBay from like Pakistan or something like that. I'm not exaggerating. That's legitimate. That story is out there because they don't know where that other title is, which is so peak like TNA Impact Wrestling back in the day, isn't it? But no, it's the end of an era, and it's the time to move on to a new chapter, I guess. Now, another spoiler warning. I'll give you 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We spoke about Madison Rayne recently, and Madison Rayne, of course, returned this past week on Impact Wrestling. She was part of the last set of Impact Wrestling television tapings, and we spoke about, is this an actual return to in-ring action for Madison Rayne? The reason why we spoke about that is, of course, because she retired. She retired earlier this year. She left Impact Wrestling. She was a color commentator with her husband, Josh Matthews. They were the commentary team in Impact. It was Josh Matthews and Madison Rayne. And then earlier this year, they were replaced by Matt Striker and D'Lo Brown. An upgrade, in my opinion, in terms of the commentary team for Impact Wrestling. And Josh Matthews got promoted. He's behind the scenes. I think you can sometimes hear him actually coaching the announcers over the headset. He's that loud. But it was an upgrade, certainly. And Madison Rayne announced that she had retired and moved on to another career, etc. Well, her retirement lasted like 7 months because she's already back to wrestling. When she returned to the last episode of Impact Wrestling, I said, I don't know what the situation is, if she's going to wrestle, if she's just going to be a manager. I thought she'd probably just be a manager, at least try and commit to this I'm retired kind of thing. But she hasn't, because she wrestled. The ladies' set of Impact Wrestling television tapings. She competed in handicap matches and in tag team matches. She's aligned herself with Tennille Dashwood and Caleb with a K. So it looks like she's going to have at least one more run as an active in-ring competitor with Impact Wrestling. It's just, I have no problem with it. I'm a Madison Rayne fan. I think she's good in the ring. I think she can still go, obviously. And she's a legend in Impact Wrestling, multiple-time Knockouts champion. I think it's only Gail Kim has held more Knockouts championships than her. So, of course, it's always great to have someone that's so prominent in the history of Impact Wrestling back in the company. Never have an issue with that. It's just the irony of earlier this year, I'm retired by August. I'm not retired anymore. Like I said before, that even breaks like a Terry Funk record for retirement. So, I have no problem with it at all. I just think it's quite humorous that I'm retired. Oh, wait, I'm no longer retired, which is certainly interesting. But look, great to have her back. And I would hope that she's angling for a match against Deonna Purrazzo. I think that's the situation at this point that Deonna Purrazzo is in Impact Wrestling, or just in pro wrestling in general. At this point, everyone wants to face Deonna Purrazzo, whether it's in AAA, whether it's in AEW, whether it's in the NWA, whether it's Impact Wrestling, of people coming back to face her for the first time. Everyone wants a piece of Deonna Purrazzo. So I wouldn't be surprised if the end game with Madison Rayne coming out of retirement is to face Deonna Purrazzo. I don't know that to be the case. That's a bit of speculation on my part, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's the direction that they're going when it comes to Madison Rayne. Of course, another spoiler warning once again. I'll give you another countdown. 5, 4... I nearly got it wrong. 3, 2, 1. A mixed tag team match has been announced for Impact Emergence. Of course, we know that Melina is facing Deonna Purrazzo at NWA Empower for the Impact Knockouts Championship. But at Impact Emergence, we will have Deonna Purrazzo teaming up with the Drama King himself, the former Aiden English, to face off against the NWA star Melina and Trey Miguel. There have been multiple angles at the latest set of Impact Wrestling television tapings that have involved, of course, Melina wrestling matches. But in both, in certain angles, there have been a situation where Deonna Purrazzo and the former Aiden English have come down to the ring to attack Melina, and Trey Miguel has made the save. So they're going to go to a mixed tag team match at Impact Emergence. Once again, I'm not going to post the spoiler or the result of that match. It's unneeded. It's not part of the story. But Melina was certainly very active at the recent set of Impact Wrestling television tapings, which is great to see. I mean, I know that this is all building up to the NWA Empower match for the Knockouts Championship, which Melina doesn't win. By the way, there's no doubt in my mind that Deonna Purrazzo wins that match. So look, I'm excited. I'm a Melina fan. I don't know if Melina's the best female wrestler ever, but she's got a name, obviously, and from her time in WWE, people know her, people like her. She's a multiple-time women's champion. She was rumored to be going back to WWE late last year, earlier this year. So the fact that she's competing in Impact Wrestling now is very exciting, and I'm all for having these recognizable names compete in Impact Wrestling, especially when they've never competed in Impact before, like a name like Melina. The fact that someone that we've never seen competing inside of an Impact ring like a Melina compete in Impact Wrestling is exciting. So I'm excited for the match against Deonna Purrazzo at NWA Empower. Like I said, this just goes to show how in demand Deonna Purrazzo is right now. If there's any doubt that she is one of the best, if not the best female pro wrestler on the planet today, it's the amount of people, especially legendary figures, that are lining up to face her, whether it's Mickie James, whether it's Melina, whether it's whoever, whether it's Britt Baker in AEW, whether it's winning the AAA Women's Championship this past weekend because AAA no money when they see it. It's all of it. Every single wrestler, female performer, there was Thunder Rosa at Slammiversary wanting to face Deonna Purrazzo. It's because she's money. It's because she's money, and everyone knows that she's money. So Impact know that as well, and because they've got Deonna to use as a bit of a leverage, I suppose, they can ask. They can get in these names like a Melina going, want to have a match against Deonna Purrazzo? We'll do it at NWA Empower, but work a couple of dates for us on our TV tapings. That's the state of Impact right now. You never know who's going to show up. Never know who's going to show up at an Impact Wrestling television taping. So the match at Impact Emergence is going to be interesting. As far as Aiden English versus Trey Miguel, that's a unique pairing. And a pairing that I probably never thought I would see face off against each other. So that certainly is going to be interesting to see how that one develops going forward as well. This one's a big spoiler warning, so I'll give you another 5 seconds before we go into this one. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now, of course, at Impact Emergence, there is a number one contenders match with the winner becoming the new number one contender for the Impact World Championship. And the person who is the number one contender for the Impact World Championship is none other than Ace Austin. Yes, I spoke about this match previously. I spoke that considering the names in the match, I always felt that the name I would like to see win would be Ace Austin. The reason why, because it had Moose, Chris Sabin, Sami Callihan. Of course, Sami Callihan just had the match at Slammiversary against Omega, so he doesn't need to be involved in that Impact World title picture again. Moose, whoever faces Omega or Christian, and the reason I'm saying that is because I think there realistically is a possibility that Omega wins the championship back at All Out. So whoever faces Omega or Christian loses at Victory Road, in my opinion. So I didn't want that to be Moose. Chris Sabin, I could have seen it being, but I would have preferred it to be Ace Austin because, I mean, if you've watched the channel, I've been saying I want to see Ace Austin face Kenny Omega for months at this point, because even though Ace Austin doesn't win that match, and I don't think Ace Austin defeats Christian Cage or Kenny Omega at Victory Road, even though he doesn't win that match, he gets over, and it's a big spotlight for him. And Ace Austin's a really young talent, but he's an Impact contracted talent, and you have to realize that whether it's Omega or Christian, as I mentioned, these defenses are finite. You've only got them for a select number of matches. You have to make them count. You have to put Omega or Christian in there with guys that you can get over, and once Omega and Christian leave and go back to AEW, the talent that have worked with them are bigger and better than they were previously. That's why I've been saying put Chris Bay in there. That's why I've been saying put Ace Austin in there. Because once Omega and Christian leave, yes, they would have defeated Ace Austin or Chris Bay, but you've got stars that feel bigger because they've been involved in bigger matches, and whoever does defeat, of course, Kenny Omega or Christian Cage feels like a bigger person anyway. So I've been saying for months that I want to see Ace Austin involved in an Impact World Championship match against Kenny Omega. It might be Christian Cage now, it might be Kenny Omega, but this is absolutely 100% the right call. So I'm very, very excited about this one. I think the match is going to be amazing. As far as the match I want to see more, Ace Austin versus Kenny Omega or Ace Austin versus Christian Cage. Of course, Ace Austin versus Christian Cage makes more sense in the traditional sense of it's a heel and a baby. It's a heel and a baby face, that makes sense. I think the better match, though, and the match I probably would want to see more, is Ace Austin versus Kenny Omega. What match will we see? Well, it depends when Victory Road is. I think it's after September 5th. I would be surprised if it was earlier than that. So I think I would hope we see Omega versus Austin, because I think that's a better match. I really think that's a better match, but I don't know. I don't know what the situation is with Kenny Omega right now. For me, it makes sense that he would win the belt back, because they've committed so much time to having Kenny Omega hold their Impact World Championship. Just to lose it to an AEW guy seems so not worthwhile. But maybe it's a case of protecting Omega in the long run. I don't know. I don't know. Either way, Ace Austin being the number one contender is a win for me. So I'm very happy with that. Finally, another spoiler warning. There was a return at the latest set of Impact Wrestling television tapings, and it was none other than 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. None other than Jake Crist. Yes, Jake Crist is back in Impact Wrestling. Now, of course, he left officially earlier this year, and he hasn't actually appeared anywhere else since, I don't think. Now, of course, there's been lots of fallout about his brother and all that kind of stuff. He hasn't really appeared anywhere since, and there was kind of a feeling he might not wrestle anywhere because of the situation that happened before. I don't know. But certainly it's an interesting return for the former Impact X Division champion. Reportedly, he's got into great shape, which is great to hear. I know that he's lost a ton of weight, and he's done quite a lot of interviews after leaving Impact Wrestling, saying that he was interested in going to all of these different companies. He was interested in going to MLW. He was interested in going to wherever, and he didn't. as far as I'm aware. I don't know if he showed up anywhere else. I don't think he showed up in Ring of Honor. I don't think he showed up. He might have showed up in MLW, unless I'm mistaken. I don't think he did. But certainly that's interesting. As far as who is he going to feud with going forward? So the segment in which he returned is that X Division champion Josh Alexander hosted an open challenge, and Jake Crist returned to answer said open challenge. After the match, a match was made for Victory Road when it comes to Josh Alexander's next opponent. We won't go into that one. But I don't know if it's a one-time thing or if he's officially back. Time will only tell, but it's interesting to see that he's back, and it'll be interesting to see what his future lays out like. Certainly very interesting. But look, guys, as always, it's just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on all of these Impact Wrestling news stories we've spoken about today? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about Impact Wrestling, AEW, WWE, New Japan Pro Wrestling, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved in the community. Drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button too. Really does help us out here on YouTube. Go to the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestling News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now. Or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or have you come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.